Dalonu, I won't ever say that my people, the Igbo people, ever thought that history was not important. History had always been one of the most important things to us, but because of our distance from the centers where the Industrial Revolution took place, we began to record history rather late. And because we began to take charge of our history rather late, a lot of violence was done to us. People made up things and attributed them to us. In fighting this scourge, in fighting this disadvantage, I'm taking on the question of anti-Semitism as it relates to the Igbo people. When it was dangerous, when it was not chic or sexy, when it seemed as if there was no advantage to be identified as the Israelites, friends, quote, friends, and outright enemies of the Igbos called the Igbos Israelites, or outrightly Jews. In the very dark days in the 1960s, when Nigerians enabled, supported by the British government of Harold Wilson, we are hunting Igbos like you would hunt rabbits in Britain or foxes in Britain. Igbos were called, to use Obasanjo's direct term, Obasanjo said, in quote, or wrote, in quote, the persecuted Jews of West Africa. He quoted it to make mockery of the persecution, even though he was old enough in the 60s to know that Igbos had been excluded from some parts of their own country. So he knew there was persecution, but because the people persecuted were the people he hated, in writing about the persecution, he quoted it, and he called the Igbos the persecuted Jews of West Africa. And by the way, we identify as Hebrews or Israelites and not as Jews, even though we know and acknowledge the relationship that exists between us and the Jews. The Jews are descendants of the Israelites, who were descendants of the Hebrews, who were the Igbos. And why should anybody even hesitate to call the Igbos what they were, even when it was dangerous to say so? When the Yorubas were forming the Cherubim and Seraphim Church, the Celestial Church of Christ, the Igbos came up with a church called Sabbath, and it was totally independent. Its origin was totally Igbo. It did not come from anywhere else. I will talk a little about this process. The British came, suppressed most of the ethnicities in Nigeria, imposed their religion only on the Igbos. The other sections of Nigeria, some chose Christianity, but the British did not do anything to impose Christianity on the Hausa Fulani Kanuri North. That's why that part remained Muslim, which it had been for more than 1,000 years. But the British imposed Christianity on the Igbos, and a lot of Yorubas chose Islam. But when the British were leaving, even before they left, these indigenous people began to try to go back to their own religions. The Yorubas invented Cherubim and Seraphim Church, invented the Celestial Church of Christ, and the other churches we call the white garment churches. What did the Igbos do? They invented a religion. It's more appropriate to call it a religion called Sabbath, which from then till now holds services on Saturday. Why did they go to Sabbath? They went to Sabbath because they came from Israel. Ifo Menana, the earliest Israelite religion, the religion of Moses, the religion of Joshua, his son, his boy, the religion of the great Samuel, if it does not convince you that Igbos are linear descendants of the Israelites, how do you explain away the Sabbath? How do you explain that away? So I wouldn't blame people if they called Igbos what they were. They were Israelites. They were called Israelites when it was not viewed as advantageous in any form or shape to be identified with Israelites. If you were identified as an Israelite in the 60s in Nigeria, it meant you were hated. Now, the question of anti-Semitism comes up. The state of Israel has grown, has become successful. And a lot of people think that if you identify as Israelite, the doors of the state of Israel could be open to you. Some people that hate Igbos, people who wouldn't recognize the Hebrew language if it is written, non-Igbos, are now becoming authorities on the question of the Israelites, talking about who is Israelite and who is not, and naturally excluding the Igbos. Ada hapụ isi aka abụrịọm. The state of Israel, modern Jews, they may not all know what I'm going to talk about now, but they will know with time. The subject of the Israelite people, the discussions about it will always be not complete without the Igbo question. They have to find a way to sit down with the Igbo people so that this nation will discuss its future. I feel it's necessary for me to talk about things like this because we have begun to take charge of our history again. The people discussed in what Christians call the Old Testament, that we call the Igbo or Hebrew Bible, are us. Find a very good translation if you cannot read Hebrew. What you would find, where you find families in the Hebrew Bible, is Umunna. Umunna, which literally means children of the father, was the Hebrew idiom for family. If I want to talk about my family today, I would say my Umunna. If Moses wanted to refer to an Israelite family, he would say children of the father. So, the Bible was produced by people who produced the Igbos. That a lot of Igbos don't know about this today is a disaster and a tragedy. And by the way, it's a consequence of Euro colonialism, criminal colonialism, A lot of Igbos expect the Pope, expect bishops, expect pastors, non-Igbos, to tell them about God. Because of what? Criminal colonialism. So likewise, if every Igbo in the world, I mean all, if all do not know that Moses knew family as Omunna, it is understandable. But the gaps could be breached, the loopholes can be plugged to stop the anti-Semites from praying, from confusing, from further destroying the Igbos. And we are not using only YouTube, we are writing. Try and find this and begin to study Igbophobia and anti-Semitism as it applies to the Igbo people. Thank you very much.